The views expressed here on Now See Here are not necessarily those of the sponsors, advertisers, Jack Criss, the host, or Roddy Merritt. This is the Now See Here podcast. My name is Jack Criss, your host. We're broadcasting live from CC's Coffee House in Ridgeland, Mississippi. SettleMyCase.com is upstairs. Mr. Roddy Merritt of Marriott Media is handling the board and the technical aspect. We're pleased to be joined again for part two of our interview with Mr. Brent Bailey, who is running for the Central District of Public Service Commissioner. Brent, welcome back.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Glad to have you. Great job in the first interview. You answered a lot of the questions that I wanted to know, and I'm sure the voters want to know. But let's go into some specifics that you've got in your campaign literature that I think really hit home. First of all, let's talk about these robocalls, because we all get them. Man, I get 2 or 3 a day. And sometimes I'll hit block this caller and they still get through. What can you do? Some people think it's the Attorney General's office, their responsibility, but what can you do to prevent these?
Yeah, so it really is sort of a team effort.
Okay.
Yeah, the Attorney General's office has a Consumer Protection Division, and they're the ones when the PSC identifies a lawbreaker, a rogue robocaller, I guess you could say, or somebody not registered with the state or abusing the no-call list. They make that recommendation to the Attorney General's office for that information, because there is a partnership. There is an AG representative embedded in the commission, and as well with the public utility staff, and they initiate these types of legal matters and hopefully can recover some damages and put that back in and stop that type of activity as well. But the PSC, we do have Mississippi. You name the law, we got it.
Yeah.
We got the no-call law, the anti-robocall, the Mississippi Telephone Solicitation Act, the all these different things that are designed to help protect consumers, reduce these types of spam calls, these predatory calls.
Especially the elderly.
Absolutely, the most vulnerable in Mississippi with the fixed incomes, because that not just we get ticked off when they call us during dinner or just times that are just not feasible.
Anytime, really.
Anytime, but the worst part is, they invade our privacy, our peace, but many times they're trying to invade our pocketbook as well, trying to get just enough data or bits of information or have us give up something to where then we're vulnerable to having our bank account or credit cards or whatever compromised and whatever. So that's one of the reasons we have all these laws passed. But, we just, July 1, there were some updates to Mississippi Telephone Solicitation Act, the no-call law, that now allows the PSC to go outside the state of Mississippi and pursue these guys.
Oh, is that right? And you work with entities outside of Mississippi,
right.
The other states?
Absolutely. You partner with law enforcement or Attorney General's office in these other states that allows us now to sort of do that.
Do other states work with us, Brent?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so we'll have that, I'm sure that reciprocal,
good.
Because a lot of these things originate from out of state, and many times out of the country. And when you have a lot of the out of country stuff, that's when you got to have the cooperation of the federal government, the FCC, the Department of Justice, the telephone companies themselves have got to be partners in this to help shut this down. Now, one thing that the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, just allowed and passed a rule that gives these multinational or national telephone companies, these voice service providers, the ability to block calls from the source now. They can see where all these calls are being generated from a single source, the algorithms, they can follow that kind of stuff, and they can begin to shut them down now. That was always kind of a gray area if they could or could not. Does that prevent free enterprise or marketing, things like that?
Not if it's a scam.
That's right. So they can tell, and they get feedback and complaints on these types of numbers or where they're coming from. They can begin to shut them down now. And there's going to be other tools and other technologies that are coming along to further restrict this. You could go as far as getting an app that blocks any call that's not saved on your phone. You just have your what they call whitelist, and you blacklist everybody else and not let them through. But what if there's an emergency, somebody's trying to reach you or something like that, that you don't have their number saved in your phone's database? So there's got to be some type of mechanism to allow that to happen.
Let me ask you a speculative question,
Yeah.
just briefly. You know, the federal government right now is looking at Google, Facebook, and the internet providers and social media pages. Will that ever become a state regulatory issue, do you think?
I don't think so.
You don't think it will?
I don't think
Okay.
so.
I was just curious because that's there's a big buzz in D.C. about it. Brent, you say here...
Even the telephones in the past were more directly regulated by the state, but we've seen that shift through legislative as well as congressional action to put more responsibility at the federal level and take some of the regulatory powers away from the state.
From the state. You say here in your campaign literature that you want to develop a long-term energy policy for the state. Would you tell us what that would entail?
Yeah, so right now we don't really have a mechanism for annually or biannually every 3 years of adequately evaluating the health of our generation fleet, the health of our transmission system, the grid, the opportunities for distributed generation to be a part of that system. We don't have a long-term planning process looking 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead of what our needs are going to be at that time. That's public, that's transparent, that everybody has a voice into. Yeah, the utilities do it themselves, do it internally, but many times we don't see that type of activity going forward. And so that's what I'm talking about. So that sort of gets into the whole concept of integrated resource planning. Many states do it, like 35, 36 states have an open, transparent, public process that allows people, stakeholders and the utilities and the regulators to work together to ensure that these investments that are generational, I mean, things that we decide on now, let's build for whether it's new power generation facilities, a lot of these have a 7 to 8 year planning horizon before they go into effect. And then you're paying for them many times for the next 30, 40 years. So we're talking about your kids and grandkids are going to get that bill. So these are generational decisions. We need a better mechanism, a better process for evaluating to ensure we don't have another Kemper-type facility, that the investments being made today will still be viable technologies and operating systems going forward.
You know, again, I don't want to put you on the spot or grandstand, but I can hear some of my listeners saying, all right, ask Brent, wouldn't it work out better if we turn this all over to private industry?
Again, what's best for the shareholders is not necessarily the best for ratepayers, consumers.
It won't happen
end of the
anyway,
road,
but
folks in the road. You know, so yeah, I know it gets to be kind of a challenge where
it's happening in some areas. I mean, there's
so you're talking about deregulation,
deregulation, and also maybe turning some things over to the free market or private company entirely.
You've seen some states have gone that route, deregulation, and many times they come back. They try to find what is that boundary, what is the sweet spot for regulation, deregulation. Overseeing investments, not overseeing investments, whether it's transmission, generation, or even wholesale distribution. Where is that at? So like Texas is a partially deregulated market. If you live in certain parts of Texas, you can choose up to 3, 4, 5 providers provide your residential home electricity. You know, and they all compete for your dollar.
You can shop.
You can shop around. Absolutely. You'll see some states in the Northeast have tried to totally deregulate the whole shebang, and many times they come back because they understand it gets. You may not get adequate investment to ensure that the lights stay on, the rolling blackouts and things like that. So you got to ensure that that continues to be there. Is Mississippi ready for deregulation? I don't know. You know, we went down that path, talked about it big in the late 90s. Then our good thing, or not so good thing, happened in the West called Enron, where you had a lot of buying and selling and shifting and credits and the lack of transparency in the market. And then that whole conversation just went away. I don't know, being a rural state like Mississippi, I don't know if we're quite ready for that type of regulation yet. I mean, deregulation at the retail level.
Fair enough.
Just because of our, our older base of our older demographics here in the state of Mississippi. If you get a lot of competition like they do in Texas, things like that, I could see some confusion happen. You know, I'm going to say trick marketing could occur. Yeah, you may start out with low rates for the first 3 months, and they jump up tremendously, and you're locked into a 2-year contract. Kind of like with cell phones or cable or or
the fine
satellite
print.
TV, and satellite. So you get into a lot of fine print issues that I'm just not sure our consumers are ready for, and so that's why I'm not opposed to it, but it's not one of the things I'm going to push for at this time.
Right now.
Now, if consumers rise up and say, hey, we got to do this, you know, that certain, I'll take a very strong look at it, but that's going to be a function of the legislature.
Let's say you get elected, okay, November 8th?
November 5th.
November 5th.
Yeah.
What's going to be the first act when you take your new position? And then secondly, what do you think is going to be your biggest challenge?
Yeah. First act, staffing up would be the big thing, and we'll have a little transition period there.
You've been looking at it now, I'm sure. I mean,
somewhat, but at the same time, I want to. I'm focused on getting elected first. I don't want to plan too far ahead. I feel like I jinx myself.
Yeah.
But I know I want to surround myself with the best, most knowledgeable, energetic people that sort of reflect me and my style, and want to be a go-getter and get out there, engage consumers, and talk to the public and make sure their interests are being represented. So that's going to be a really first activity, I guess you could say, and work with the existing staff and commissioner and build on that transition. Luckily, because I'm an intervener in more dockets and issues of PSE than I can count right now, whether it's electricity issues, whether it's projects, whether it's the no-call list, whether it's other things. So I won't need that big of a learning curve on the issues.
Right.
But that's something we're going to be dealing with. But as far as the biggest challenge, it's going to be looking ahead at what is going to be needed going forward. We got a lot of aging assets here in the state of Mississippi.
Oh boy!
Whether it's the infrastructure, whether it's generation, and that's something we're going to have to evaluate. How our utilities, should they be part of half the state is involved with what's called a regional transmission organization, MISO, and they are sort of the traffic cops on the transmission highway, but the other half of the state is not. That's something we're going to have to evaluate. What is the best opportunities, the most reliable situation for consumers? And so those are some things we're going to have to continue to look at, but certainly the generation fleet here in the state, we need to take a hard look at where they're at as far as age-wise. Investments is going to be needed going forward. Replacement value, if that is what's needed. But, just going to have to look at the infrastructure.
I don't know how closely your office would work with the governor, but we're going to have a new governor this fall. It's either going to be Tate Reeves, Bill Waller, or Jim Hood. Do you know these gentlemen? Have you spoken to them? And what kind of relationship will you have with our governor, new governor?
Being on the campaign trail, you run across all three regularly, shake their hand, and exchange a good luck and keep on rolling. But no, I'm sure there will be opportunities and times when there will need to be cooperation between the offices.
And you don't foresee a problem with any of the candidates?
No, sir, I do not.
That's good to hear.
Because, this is about the consumer. This is about small business. This is about economic development in the state. This is about smart investments going forward and providing opportunities for a very diverse set of issues and a very diverse clientele here in Mississippi, and I want to be a voice for everybody.
Talking to Brent Bailey, Public Service Commissioner candidate for the Central District. I'm Jack Chris. This is Now See Here. You mentioned, and you've talked about it during this interview, Brent, reliable and renewable energy. Now, when you say that, are you referring to solar or what in particular, and is Mississippi ready to implement these kind of changes?
That is certainly one option for technology here in the state of Mississippi. Of course, renewable can be many different things, or just the term clean energy, clean tech, which also involves energy efficiency, battery storage, solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, biomass-based utilities. There are certain aspects that Mississippi is, I think, a prime candidate for, and we've already seen some of that investment here. And there's others that's just, Mississippi is just not the best place for investing in that for one reason or another, whether it's the adequacy of the resource, the readiness of the technology, or the even the readiness of the market. Those are things that where we need to evaluate and see what is the smartest, most advantageous pathway going forward to provide more options to the consumer, to have them more choice, and quite frankly, create a little more competition in the marketplace. And I think with distributed generation and these types of distributed energy resources, it makes the utilities a little more responsive to their customer.
And I assume you've been studying, you've got a plan ready to go.
It's part of my background. It's a lot of things we're involved in. Solar, we have a lot of things happening here in the state moving that way on solar. We have 3-4 major solar projects in South Mississippi, getting ready to cut the ribbon on a very large one over in Lauderdale County within the next month. There's options on the table for a significant 100 megawatt size facility in Sunflower County that's now going through the process of being evaluated and vetted out, and will be decided on at the PSC within the next 2 months. And then you get your smaller scale, your rooftop, your small commercials application, warehouse type things, and then your residential applications as well. And one thing I want to be sure we do, if I had the opportunity to be sworn in January, is to maintain certainty in that market. So we're not having start again, stop programs, the way incentives are created, or the excess generation recovery mechanism that's currently out there.
You need consistency.
Absolutely. You got to have consistency in the market. You got to have consistency in the regulatory framework. And that's how you ensure that there's economic activity. Folks are willing to come in, invest, set up shops, hire people, put people to work, and get that economic opportunity, that economic sector going, and make sure it remains viable and competitive.
Little political question for you here, Brent. You say on your literature here, Brent Bailey is the only conservative running for the seat, and you represent conservative family values that make Mississippi great. How does that translate into the job you're going to be doing? And give us your definition of a conservative.
Yeah. So I like to say I'm running on those conservative principles that, we want to create more competition in the marketplace. We want to provide more choice for consumers, and we want to value your thoughts as a ratepayer, to provide you that respect you deserve because of the bills you pay every month. You add them all up, the office of the PSC probably has more impact on your monthly budget, household budget, than many other utilities.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Many other agencies. And we want to make sure you're respected as a consumer, that your choices that you want, desire, hopefully we can provide them to you. And that competition aspect, which should be, I think, sort of a benchmark of conservatism, providing that choice, we can hopefully provide that at some point in time and offer that in today's structure. But, we would just want to make sure that families are well represented, that in small business, which is the backbone of Mississippi.
Absolutely.
And
bear the brunt.
That's right, to make sure that they remain viable entities, whatever they are, and that Mississippi continues to remain a place of business for them and viable markets, and they remain economically viable going forward. And those are the type of things that we want to ensure the PSC helps provide.
And you do feel pretty confident, your last point here, and this is a good one. You say you want, if you want the voter, if you want lower power bills, better internet, and less nuisance calls, you're the choice.
Yes.
You feel confident in doing all three of those things?
Yes, sir. I think with the mechanisms that are in place out there, the foundation that's been laid, we can continue to move forward with that. We've been pounding away to ensure year-to-year energy efficiency programs are offered through the utilities to consumers. In many cases, you're paying for that service today, but so many people are not aware that these programs, these services are out there. All you got to do is ask for them. And by becoming more efficient appliances, just doing simple steps around the home that are lower, no-cost options or measures, you can significantly impact your monthly utility bill. There you're reducing your bill, which creates less demand, reduces peak charges, begins to bring down the rates. And you can do that whether you're at a chicken farm or whether you're at CC's Coffee House.
Yeah.
These are things that you can do as a owner-operator to begin reducing your bill and reducing your rates. And we want to help inform people that these options are out there.
More money in your pocket,
That's
your own
right.
pocket.
That's right.
Final question. We've got a few minutes left, and I do want people to, you're going to be on regularly, and we're glad to have you aboard as a sponsor. We acknowledged you before you came in here today. We're glad to support you. And see, we're not FCC regulated. We can say whatever we want to. So we endorse you. We promote what you're doing. What about the city of Jackson? I mean, you cover, that's part of your coverage area. Man, it's our capital city, but it's just fallen into such disrepair. Can Brent Bailey do anything to help Jackson get back on its feet, infrastructure-wise?
Well, the city itself, again, statutory requirements prevent the PSC from just kicking the door open and saying, we're taking over. Because, you elect a mayor, you elect a city council, they elect director of public works, and you have all this staff, and and as a city, they've chosen to provide these services. So you kind of got to stand back and let things go. Now, if those services extend beyond a 1 mile barrier of the city, and they offer those services to consumers out in rural parts of the county, they're connected to the water, wastewater system, etc., then you become the charge, or you have a voice through the Public Service Commission then. And yes, then the PSC begins to be your advocate on those rate issues and ensure that the city of Jackson or any municipality is doing the right thing. It's not overcharging you. It's not trying to make you their revenue profit center.
Right.
So yes, the PSC does have. And in certain cases, if things absolutely go off the rail, and we've seen that in some municipalities around the state. Yes, the PSC with the Assistant Attorney General Office and others, pretty much those two, they do get involved. They help clean things up, turn things around, maybe make some hard decisions.
Like with school systems, when the state comes in and takes over.
Yeah, kind of like that. I guess that's a pretty good comparison. So yeah, there are options, and it has happened, whether it's water systems, whether it's electricity. We've seen that. In North Mississippi with Saltillo, South Mississippi Arnold Line, there's things going on now in the city of Canton with Canton Municipal Utilities that the PSC is involved in. When consumers just, they were at wit's end and things were just obviously not going the right way, the PSC, their staff, their expertise, they come in and say, let's help turn things around.
Well, Brent, we appreciate your time. I know you're on the road a good bit. You were last week. Where are you heading next? And then tell us how people can contact you if they want more information on your campaign.
Yep. So, we're still continuing to travel around. We're in Scott County last night. We'll be down in Rankin County tomorrow. With the current environment and getting beyond the primary runoffs, everybody's attention is obviously focused on next Tuesday, and that's certainly going to help get things around. But you can reach me. You can follow me online at Brent Bailey 4 PSC.com. About everything you could ever want to learn or know about me and my experience and where I stand on the issues is on that website. We have a Facebook page as well, Brent Bailey for MPSC or for Public Service Commissioner. Type that in, it'll come right up. We have a Twitter at Brent G. Bailey, and we try to be just as accessible as we can be.
Well, and I can attest to the fact that you are. Folks,
I appreciate it.
It's Mr. Brent Bailey running for Public Service Commissioner Central District. Brent, we're going to have you on again soon. And we appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoy having the conversation. Thank you so much for your expertise in running a great board over there.
Yeah, Roddy knows what he's doing.
Absolutely. But I look forward to additional conversations with you and your listeners. And hopefully you get feedback through your podcast. Somebody says, hit him with this question next time. And I'll be more than happy to do that.
We're about to start working with getting questions submitted online or either on Facebook. That's something we're looking at. Call-ins, I don't know. It's a different world out there.
That's what I mean. If somebody
wants to email a question, we'll have them set up. Yeah,
we're going to even on the Facebook page, if that comes up after this is posted, I'll be more than happy to get directed to that and be as responsive as possible. That's something I found. Folks said, we'll get my number off the my campaign site and pick up the phone and call, and they're surprised as me answering the
Pick
phone.
up the phone. Yeah, well.
or even responding to email, even out of district requests and questions, because that's what we want to do and be.
It's a good sign, my friend. Good luck. Keep up the good work.
Well,
We'll see you soon.
Yes, sir.
I'm
Thank
Jack
you.
Chris, the Now See Here podcast at CC's Coffee House, where we originate every Wednesday with our professional broadcast. On behalf of Mr. Roddy Merritt, Merritt Media, Mr. Brent Bailey, I'm Jack Chris. Thank you so much for listening, and take care.